Hey, what's up, people? How you doing? It's your man Rondell Jordan, aka the Black Swan, with BlackSwanRadio.com. Welcome to my channel. It's a Monday. The sun is out. I love the sun. The sun gives me life. It gives me energy. And I say that because imagine a world without the sun, without light. You know, it's a gloom, dark place, right? Even with just an overcast, it sets the mood of the day, you know, differently, and we all live in it together as a community, you know. Now, every person is in the world's not experienced the same weather, but in groups we are. And you know, the powerful thing about groups and community and being under one umbrella or one cloud is the power of cooperation, coordination. And it's something we don't practice in the United States much at all. You know, I was looking in the camera, you know, on Instagram. And I'm like, why won't I record? You know, I have ideas, I have thoughts. You know, I have a lot to say and I have a lot to offer, but that platform, I don't understand why I feel muted, you know. And I think it's because of the audience is not unified in any type of purpose or cause. It's just a random group of people. And I'm not saying it is the fault of anybody other than my own. I haven't really engaged with the public with the consistency. And it's just because, you know, I'm a quickly evolving, quickly changing person. I haven't really had a lot of consistency in my life, to be honest. You know, in my elementary days, you know, my parents moved often, and you know, I switched schools a lot, so relationships and you know, longevity was something that I seen, but really hasn't been part of who I am. But I have always been with someone who was always on the move. And you know, there's pros and cons to, you know, the gifts that we get. You know, depends on how you look at it. But one of the visions that I've always had, you know, in my relationship with the public is, you know, a sense of service. You know, I was never afraid of service. I started out, you know, in service. You know, my first job was working for a, you know, home health facility, right, for elderly people. And you know, I was making beds and feeding people and taking them out for walks. So I guess, you know, subconsciously I'm being introduced into a servant leadership type position, you know, I actually took a class in college class in servant leadership. There's always been another aspect of me, is that I've always been interested in profits. Both spelling, Profits and Prophets. It's just something I've always gravitated to, And one of my favorite chapters in the Bible, I don't know why I say favorite, but it is one of my favorite parables, I would say. It's in Matthew 25, right? When Christ, because isn't all red letters, so you can safely say that, right? Verse 14 is given a parable. He actually gave you 3 parables in that chapter, about the kingdom of heaven, right? And the first shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom, right? And then 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took the lamps and took no oil with them, but the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, "Behold, the bridegroom is coming. Go out to meet him." Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out." But the wise answered, saying, "No, lest there shall not be enough for us and you, but go rather to those who sell and buy for yourselves." And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with them to the wedding, and the door was shut. Afterwards, the other virgins came also, saying, "Lord, Lord, open to us." But he answered and said, "Assuredly, I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming." So, we know in that basically it's saying being prepared. And the oil, represents a currency, right? Energy, light, right? We know it represents money because, in the next chapter, when the woman came to Jesus, right, having the flask, right, of costly, fragrant oil, and she poured it on his head, and he sat at the table, but his disciples saw it. They were indignant, saying, "To what purpose is this waste? For this fragrant oil might have been sold for much and given to the poor." Right? So they equate oil with money, right? And, the woman was showing value because she valued the presence of Christ, and they at the time didn't see the same value as she felt, right? But that preceded this lesson, right, that we're talking about, because of course Christ expected you have read, right? So, the wise are prepared. So we want to be among the wise. We want to be prepared, right, economically, right, beforehand, right? So this is the basis of my economic principle here, right? And then if you go into verse 14, the second parable, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them." All right, let's pause real quick, right? Because the first parable, if you notice, the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps. So, of course, we're thinking about virgins and the bridegroom, and, we're thinking about females who are of course, in their innocence, right? And, seeking to be wives, right? That's one metaphor and one lesson out of that. But there's another angle, because the English colonies was established in Virginia by an organization or a company called the Virginian Company, right? The London Company, which had a branch called the Virginia Company. And this was in a group of investors, right, who sent a missionary group of military aged men of about 110, I believe it was, or somewhere more or less that number, in 1607 to what we now call Virginia, which is actually Pocahontas people, right? The Powhatan, right? So they act like the name means rebellious one and all that kind of stuff. No, it's a word to describe the people who occupied that land, the Powhatans. But Pocahontas is like a variation of it, right? But that river we called Jamestown River, right? That river was the Powhatan River, right? And when the colonializers came up along that river, the first thing they did when they landed was christened it. They put a cross, right, a sword into the ground, right, and then began the colonies through a process. All right, so the point that I'm trying to get here is that these are the virgins, right, the Virginians. And when the Virginians, they were led by a captain, Christopher Newport, right? And, to this day, if you're in Virginia, you probably know about Newport News, right? Newport is a important name there. All right. So Christopher Newport would drop his men off, right? The Virginia colony off, and then he would sail north, upward towards New England. Makes perfect sense, right? And he would establish a colony in New England, right? And then later on, he would go back to the Virginia colony to either resupply it, to bring material, maybe the things that they have acquired in New England, or they would do resupply, and from London, and he would go back and resupply and see what they were able to acquire from the natives, to see what they were able to build and to establish. So when we read these parables, when we talk about the kingdom of heaven, heaven is a word that was chosen by it was approved by the King James writers to use to describe a particular place. But in this particular place, you have to be wise with your oil or with your money, right? And we're going back into another parable about this kingdom, right, where we're dealing with a man traveling to a far country who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who received the 5 talents went and traded with them, and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. Right? So they both doubled their profit. Okay? But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. It's very important to recognize it says, and hid his Lord's money. Number 1, the Lord, the money, he was in his possession, but he did not own it. Because you cannot possess money. Money is something that is flow through us, right? If you have cash as a government note, it comes into your hand, and by the end of the month, it'll be out of your hand. And if you try to stow it, look what happens here, right? It's the Lord's money. Now, it's also not the Lord's. It says his Lord's. And if you look, it's lowercase Lords. So a lot of people don't recognize it. It's his Lord's money. We're talking about money in the kingdom of heaven. The second parable of the kingdom of heaven. Now, after a long time, the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. Right? He came to settle the debt. Reconcile. Some people says Bibles word that a little differently, right? But he settled the accounts. He came back to reconcile the financial situation, the economics, right? So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents besides them. Okay, so again, this is his Lord. It means that that's their master. Lord is another word. It's like heaven was used to describe this kingdom. It's a choice of word. Lord is a choice of word. It could also mean be used. A synonym would be master, right? So the masters of those servants could be slave, it could be employees, it can be whatever you want to put that word in there. But he came and settled the accounts with them. He came and settled the debt. So the one who had received 5, he came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered me 5 talents. Look, I have gained 5 more talents beside them. So his Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. So, being faithful over a few things, and earning the credibility to be made the ruler over many things. So we're talking about he's positively reinforcing the behavior of being profitable, the profitable servant, right? And so, he's telling us that if you're able to double your money, then you will be able to enter into the joy of the Lord. And not only that, you will be made ruler over many things. All right? Because number one, we got to understand that it doesn't actually belong to us. This is the reason why professionals form corporations and companies, because they understand that it's something that it's not theirs, but they're associated with them because they're the creator of it, and therefore the currency that flows through the company, they can say is their wealth or their value. But in the modern economic systems, it is very dangerous because you have the two entities, right? Someone else can come in and overtake that entity and basically expel you. You see what I'm saying? Because you are two different entities. So this is what Kanye is going through, with his brands and stuff like that. You're going to always be in a war, because once you get into a certain value, now that usually causes divisions, right? But back to the situation, right? So I will make you ruler over many things, enter into the joy of the Lord. He also, who had received 2 talents, came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I've gained 2 more talents beside them. His Lord said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you a ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of your Lord. So he repeated exactly what he said to the guy who doubled 5, to the guy who doubled 2. So to the Lord, as long as you were profitable, not only that, doubled your profits, you come into the joy of the Lord, and you are considered a faithful, and you have the credibility to be made ruler over many things. So we want to exercise this talent. We need to hone this skill of doubling profit. So this is what my training program is about. It's about actually taking these principles and putting it into real world, science, real world action, real world training. And let's just see if we can grow a group of people who's, interested in flocking together with this concept, So verse 24, it says, then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. Hear what he said? I knew you to be a hard man. Okay. Reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. Well, is this guy the savings guy? Because, in his mind, he's like, look, you gave me this money and I'm giving you your money back. That's in his mind. So he thinking, look, it can't be no harm with that, right? I was afraid. So number 1, this guy is acting out of fear. 2, he's kind of acting out of envy because he's sitting there. I see what you're doing. You taking, reaping where you have not sown. He's seeing that, he's not getting his money, his profits by labor. And this is making him mad. And so what he did was he took the talent, which is a currency, but also it's a word that describes your skill set. It said in the beginning, based off of, right? In the beginning, he gave him the talents based according to his own ability. That was in verse 15, right? Based according to their ability. So he had confidence that the guy who doubled 5 was going to be able to do this. He had extra confidence in it. And the guy he had, he had, pretty good credit. He was probably a working class. He wasn't maybe the rich class, but he was the working class guy. But he took his credit seriously. He was a hardworking man. He doubled his profit. So enter the joy. He was pleased with that. But you got a poor man thinking, I'm just going to save my talent. He buried his talent. Literally, meaning like not in just the currency state, but in the sense of he didn't exercise his skill. See, when the Lord or the God or the master gives you a talent, you're supposed to use that to become profitable. And we've been given a poor mindset that we're supposed to just be, giving charitable in the sense of just giving things away for free. And I'm not saying philanthropy is not charitable, but it ensures that if you spend 10 years doing that, you're going to spend another 10 years, you got to get yourself to a position of profitable before you can begin to give a consistent percentage to be able to support something in a long term. Unless that system, whatever you're putting into, is going to return that investment to you. Because listen to how this goes on. In 26, he said, but the Lord answered and said to him, you wicked and lazy servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Therefore you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So we got to stop there. First, the first thing with this situation is he didn't deny the accusations, right? He just said, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Therefore, you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own with interest. So that tells you without a doubt that he's talking about earning interest, right? So this is the reason why I'm talking about being profitable using Patreon and then investing in cryptocurrency, right? To buy a blockchain. We can buy the Crown and Blackcoin blockchains as a group, one coin at a time, and then increase the value of it by just gaining 2 users each. As long as each investor continues to bring 2 new investors into our blockchain, we will continue to grow that blockchain exponentially. The problem with Dogecoin is that the coins can be produced out of thin air infinitely, right? There's no limit to its supply. So you had a high functioning blockchain, yes, which makes a lot of sense, especially if you're sending a lot of money through that blockchain. All right. But the blockchain is not designed to increase in value like Bitcoin. We want a blockchain that's designed to increase in value like Bitcoin as an investor, because we want those Bitcoin results. See, Bitcoin didn't go 0, 100 or 1,000th of a penny. It never was worth that. It went from 75 cents to $1.25, $1.25 to $2, $2, $3, $3, $4, and beyond. It went up by the dollars, and then by the $100, then by the thousands, then by the 10,000s. So if we're going to put exponential growth in something, we want something that's going to be able to continue and maintain and sustain its growth. So my personal opinion, Blackcoin is the best out of these 2 coins for that exponential growth, and only because at this point is liquidity, you have more options. But Crown is more valuable because there's only 42 million Crown coins, just like there's only 21 million Bitcoins. All right, so there's a cap to the amount of coins that can be circulated through that blockchain. All right, you cannot produce new coins in neither Blackcoin or Crown. Blackcoin has 61 million. It is 3 times the value currently, and it has a cap on its below 100 million. It's an automated system. Both of them were launched in 2014, second generation blockchain technologies. So I am interested in these 2 coins because of their potential in increasing significantly. All right, with just a little bit of traffic. All right, so moving on. Interest is the way the Lord moves. And he's saying if you have the knowledge, you knew means that you have the knowledge in the past tense, that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. All he's saying is that you scattered the seed. I gave you the talent. You go get the seed, scatter it, get harvest, go out, sell it, get the profits, come back. I'm the investor. That's not my job. That's your job. And you didn't do it. You just sat around, wait. What was you doing the whole time I was gone? That's not why God or anyone gives you talent for you can just bury it and put it in a house or put it in the garage and just. It is to be profitable. So that parable concludes, therefore take the talent from him and give it to him who had 10 talents. That was the only difference between the guy who made who made 10 and the guy who doubled 2 and made